Hi, this is Shay with Trucks to Sales here today doing a little comparison video. We got the Paccar MX-13 versus the Cummins ISX15, and these are both the EPA 2013 models. So if you know, we got EPA 2010, 2013, and 2017, which are all different versions of these engines. So today we're comparing the EPA 2013 model, which comes in 2014 through 2017 Peterbilts and Kenworths. So this is more of an opinion-based comparison here. Our opinion, our mechanic shop, opinion of these two engines, kind of our experience as of December 2021. So in this video, we're going to talk about weight comparison, power comparison, fuel efficiency comparison, parts availability, reliability, as well as repair costs. So we're going to be doing all that in this video right here. Some other people, compare engines by just reading the spec sheet. So I'm not really going to read you guys the spec sheet on each engine. You can find that on our website. We got the spec sheets to almost all the different models of the Paccar, Cummins, Detroit, Volvo, Mack, all that stuff on our website, truckstosales.com. And we also have transmission spec sheets for all the different transmission manufacturers, as well as suspension, and we're just getting differential spec sheets on there as well. So you definitely want to check that out if you want to get the specs. But today we're just going to kind of go with our opinion and just kind of talk about some practical things that you don't have to be a mechanic to understand. Some practical things that truck drivers and buyers of these trucks and users of these trucks can gain some knowledge from. So we'll jump right into it here. The first thing we're just going to talk about here is the weight, the weight comparison and the displacement. So the Cummins engine is a bigger engine at 14.9 liters, and the Paccar engine is 12.9 liters. So that makes the Paccar engine about 800 pounds lighter is what it seems like we're getting here when we're weighing these trucks. So if you're really concerned about weight, you get a little bit more out of this Paccar engine, a little more payload in the back of the truck. Here we have a dump truck body connected to this Peterbilt 579. And we also have a dump truck here connected to this Peterbilt 389. So the lower weight is definitely a bonus here, but with the smaller displacement comes a little bit less power. So even though these engines both might be rated at 450 horsepower, typically it's going to seem like you have more power with the Cummins set at 450 horsepower. But you're going to get better fuel efficiency out of the Paccar MX-13 at 450 horsepower. But that's likely because you're just burning less fuel, so you have less power. But typically people are saying they're getting better fuel mileage out of the Paccar engine. But as you can see, the better fuel mileage might be due to lower power. You can get this Paccar engine set all the way at 500 horsepower, and this Cummins engine in the efficiency model can also be set at 500 horsepower. In the performance model, you can go all the way up to 600 horsepower. But the 600 horsepower compared to the 450 horsepower, you're definitely going to be losing at least 1 mpg. So you will notice more power, but you'll definitely notice more fuel burn as well by turning this Cummins up to 600 horsepower. So obviously with 450 horsepower, this engine, you'll move 80,000 pounds, no problem, all day, every day with the MX-13. If you wanted to move 150,000 pounds, then 450 horsepower definitely isn't going to cut it. Once you start moving really over 100,000 pounds, you got to have the extra horsepower to comfortably move the load. But you can see these just 4-axle dump trucks that we have here. Either of these engines are going to be plenty for moving, 60,000 pounds, which is about the most you're going to haul on the road with either of these trucks. But you connect up a 4-axle pup trailer, and now you're moving 115,000 pounds. You're going to want to step up to 500 plus horsepower is what we'd recommend for that application. So this Paccar set at 500 is going to be borderline for moving those bigger loads. Of course, it will move the loads. It's just how fast you're going to be going up the hill with either of these engines here. So right there, right off the bat, if you're gonna want to be moving, 100,000 plus, 120,000 plus pounds, you're just gonna want to step up to the bigger displacement engine. All right, so now that we got the weight and the power talked about, we're gonna just kind of talk about the parts availability and then the reliability last here, and then just kind of looking at these engines, then we'll kind of talk about, the ease of working on each of these engines. So Cummins has been around a lot longer than Paccar, and the aftermarket has really made a ton of parts for the Cummins engine. So if you're some long haul truck driver, and you break down in some small town, it might be possible that the Paccar parts are not available. So pretty much everybody sells Cummins parts everywhere around the country, but you could run into a situation where you got to wait a day or two to get some Paccar parts there. But if you're in a city truck hauling around town, waiting on parts, might not be as big a deal. You're not going to be sitting in a hotel room, something like that. So that's one of the complaints that people have, is parts availability. Here in Houston, we have no problem getting parts, but you are a little bit more limited on where you can get parts for. And then performance parts, that Cummins engine, you can get compound turbo systems that boost you all the way up to 750 horsepower. Obviously, you could have some reliability issues with that, but that is stuff we can install, those PDI kits, all that stuff where you're boosting power. They do have some aftermarket computer programs for this Paccar engine that will give you a power boost, but nothing like the Cummins. Just way more options with aftermarket parts suppliers, all of that stuff. So if you're in a big city, I wouldn't worry too much about getting parts, but if you're in an area where there might not be a bunch of parts shops, definitely check and see. Parts availability is definitely something to think about, but when you're saving so much money on buying one of these Paccars over the red guy right there, it's definitely some savings there. And you'll see we're comparing these two Peterbilts in another video, but you can save on average right now in December 2021. I mean, you're saving $10,000 to $15,000, maybe even $20,000 on just getting a Peterbilt or Kenworth with a Paccar compared to a Peterbilt or Kenworth with the Cummins. New, you're looking at a difference of maybe $5,000 set at the same horsepower settings. But you get into the used market here, and these Cummins engines are just holding their value way better right now. But if we go into the reliability, are you getting a way better engine, than the Paccar engine? That's something that is definitely open for discussion. So of course, with each of these engines, there's going to be stories of people who have had to rebuild their engines at 100,000 miles and at 200,000 miles. And there's going to be stories of people whose engines have gone 1.5 million miles, without too much trouble. But it's the percentage and the likelihood that you're going to get there is what's going to make a reliable engine a reliable engine. If you look at the fleets and see how many Paccar engines have had to be rebuilt in a particular fleet, and you take a fleet of trucks with Cummins engines and you see how many engines they had to rebuild, you can start to get an idea of how reliable an engine is. So you're paying $15,000 more approximately for the Cummins engine right now over the Paccar, but is that what you're going to save in reliability, mechanic bills, and parts availability? So what we're seeing here in our shop, repairing these Paccar engines, most shops now should have the computer programming. When this engine first came out, it was difficult to troubleshoot because you didn't have the programming. So that definitely made it a lot harder. But now, most shops should have the computer programming to take a look at these engines. And you can see we're on the turbo side here, and we have the EGR valve. So this is one thing that's definitely a better part, that we would say is a better part than the EGR valve on the Cummins. That EGR valve on the Cummins, if the thing sticks, you have to open it up just to unstick it. And typically, people take the EGR valve off. As you can see, let me see if I can zoom in on that. There's the EGR valve on the Cummins. So you take that little guy off, chances are you take it off, you're replacing it with a brand new one. You know, that it costs $2,500 just because the little valve inside here is stuck. So on this one, you can actually turn these and unstick the valve if your truck's been sitting for a little while or it has soot in it. You can take a wrench here, unstick it, and the thing's working. So what you got to be careful going to shops, sometimes, you know, they're selling you a whole new valve and really it's just the valve is stuck in there because soot, it's obviously part of the exhaust system, soot can get in there. So this is definitely a nicer design here with the Paccar engine, and we're actually comparing this engine, this 2013 EPA model that's in the 13 through 17 trucks. Check out our video on that where we're comparing it to the 18 through 2022 model, and we got a 2022 we're going to line up right next to this truck and do a video on next. So as far as working on these trucks here in our shop, you know, we would say it's not any more money really to wrench on the Paccar versus the Cummins. Sure, our mechanics are more familiar with the Cummins, but you know, this EGR valve going bad all the time, this EGR cooler going bad all the time, it just seems like the Paccar one might be a little better, a little more robust. And you can see on this side of the engine, we've got a nice wiring harness set up, you know, all protected in there, all that stuff. The computer, easy to access right here. Fuel filters, all that stuff. They basically have the same filter system, the same exhaust filter system on both trucks. So there isn't really any difference there, but you'll see on the 2018 models and up, there is definitely a difference. We'll go ahead and jump over to the other side of the Cummins engine. And you can see we got a bunch of lines coming in here. You can kind of see the wiring harness there. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the other one. Zoom in on that. You know, both of them have the fuel rails right at the top of the engine there. Fuel injectors right there in the side of the block. Look a little easier to change than on the Paccar. See the same fuel filter setup there. We got the computer down on the side here. These ones also had a ton of problems with the fuel pumps there. Right down in there. So we've replaced tons of leaking fuel pumps on these things. But we've had a lot more Cummins engines run through our shop. So it might seem like we're replacing more things on the Cummins engine, but really as far as, you know, dealing with all this external stuff, not opening up the engines, we're definitely not seeing reliability gains out of the Cummins engine over the Paccar engine. And like I said, in the case of this little EGR valve and EGR cooler, we're having less issues on the Paccar engine that we're coming across with those particular emissions things that are causing everybody a bunch of headaches here. And as far as our opinion goes, if you don't need the extra power, these Paccar engines are a deal, you know, buying a Peterbilt or Kenworth with the Paccar engine. Same thing if the whole engine did grenade on you and you need a replacement engine, you're going to pick up a Paccar engine for a lot less than a used Cummins engine. So even cost of complete engine replacement is going to be considerably less with one of these Paccars. And complete engine replacement is something we do in our shop here, and that's something that can be done a lot quicker to get you back on the road than an engine rebuild. So typically just getting a used engine, plugging that into your truck is going to be a lot simpler fix and less expensive fix than pulling your engine out, mailing it off to get rebuilt, something like that. And we can get a core charge for your broken engine. We even have a used Paccar engine in stock right now as of this video. So you're paying more money for the Cummins engine, and I would say the repairs, you know, one being more reliable than the other, that's kind of a toss-up, but you're with the savings you're getting out of purchasing this Paccar engine, it's definitely a really good value right now, and especially for a round town truck and you're in a big city, something like that with a bunch of parts, you know, getting this Paccar is definitely not something to be afraid of. So hopefully this video here helped you to make a decision, got you a little more insight on these two engines here. You know, this is our mechanic shop's opinion that, you know, they're both decent engines for, you know, as far as having all this emission stuff on them. And I definitely wouldn't worry or shy away from getting this Paccar engine. Definitely a great value. This is Shay with Trucks to Sales. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out our upcoming videos on how to make your Cummins or Paccar engine last 1,000,000 miles. We got a bunch of maintenance tips and different maintenance things that you should be doing related to the engine and the emission system as well. And of course, give us a call with any questions.